This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio. Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas this week, the largest cruise ship at the time of recording in the world. Also, staff writer Richard Sims is here with cruise news. So checking in with Richard right now from the Yacht Club on MSC Meraviglia, in which he is sailing this week. Hey, Richard.
Well, I will try and prevent my butler from interrupting while we do this. They're showering me with treats, so I can't guarantee that they won't come in any moment now with something.
Well, we start with a sad story that is developing in the Bahamas right now.
Yeah, that's right, Doug, because it involves someone going overboard from a ship, and we all know those stories very rarely have happy endings. In this case, the woman is a 66-year-old who was traveling on Allure of the Seas from Miami. The 3-day sailing had departed Nassau, was headed toward Perfect Day when the incident happened. This type of story usually gets a lot of attention in the media under any circumstances. They love doing people overboard stories. But this one has gotten even more play because the sailing was Taylor Swift themed. Now, to be clear, Tay was not on board. She has no association with this. It was, a group of Taylor Swift fans, but not it's not like Taylor Swift was coming on Allure of the Seas to perform. But when you put the words Taylor Swift and Man Overboard into the same sentence, that's going to get a whole lot of press. So you can pretty much guarantee everyone has heard about it. The U.S. Coast Guard and the Royal Bahamian Defense Force were called to assist with the search, as was Utopia of the Seas. But as we record this, there's been no update. So, that tells us there's probably not going to be a good ending to this story, as we said. For those keeping track, this is the 15th man overboard to be reported so far this year. And obviously, we don't ever want to hear about, let alone report about someone going overboard. And we certainly don't want to record or report the sad endings that these stories usually reach. But it is a matter of perspective. And while 15 people have gone overboard this year, that's out of 35 million who have sailed. So
Norwegian Cruise Line has 2 ships coming up, and they detailed a little bit more about them.
Usually when new ships are being introduced, especially these days, with cruising so much in the spotlight, information tends to be released in dribs and drabs because they can get, instead of releasing everything at once, they can get more publicity by releasing, okay, here's the information about the roller coaster that's going to be on top of the ship, or in this case, the water coaster. And here's information about some of the new bars and menus. So that's what's happening here. We're talking about the Norwegian Aqua and the Norwegian Luna, which are the next 2 ships in the Prima class series. And both ships are going to be offering what they call a game zone, which is really a revamped version of the Galaxy Pavilion rolled up with the arcade. One of the things I really love here is what they are doing with the arcade. I have said for years and years and years, I love an arcade experience. But when you go into the arcade, they tend to be on ships. They tend to be very modern arcades with, the crash 'em ups and the car races and stuff like that. And I've always said, you want to really, make some extra money in there, put in some old fashioned games. Like we used to have, what was that great spot at downtown Disney that no longer exists, that was like a 3-story arcade and included all the pinball machines and great games like that. I can never remember the name of it. But this is what they're doing now. Everything old is new again. And so in this new game zone on the Norwegian ships, they are going to be including old games like Donkey Kong and Ms. Pac-Man and stuff like that. But I'm going to say people like myself will very much enjoy. I mean, you want to get me in there. I'm not gonna do one of these boxing games, but you get me in there. I care a lot more about Ms. Pac-Man than I do 3D games. I'm getting older. What can I say? Elsewhere, they're taking the Bullseye Dart Center, which on the Prima was a pay zone. You went and you rented out an area for an hour or whatever to play darts. Here it is going to be a free area with a bar. So that's going to be kind of cool. Along the same lines, they are taking Tea Time, their version of miniature golf, with a lot of interactive features. You knock the ball in and it sets off alarms, and you just knock another one in and it takes a picture of you. That was really fun on Prima, but it was also very expensive. Here they are expanding it and making it stretch over 2 decks. Interestingly, they do not say that they're making this free. The darts, which they had on the previous thing and they're expanding here, the darts they are saying will be complimentary. They do not say that about the Tea Time Golf. So I'm assuming that probably will still carry a price with it. Hopefully it'll be a little lower than it was on Prima when it rolled out. They're also expanding the Mandara Spa and what it offers. It's going to have a 2-story waterfall and an IV therapy drip, which is supposedly great for those who partied a little too hard the night before. You go in and you get this IV drip and it, sort of gives you a refresh. They're also adding more of those tiled heated loungers that everybody loves in the thermal spa. That was a complaint we heard on Prima, was that there weren't enough of them. In fact, we hear that no matter how many they put in, there's never enough. You hear that from people who go to the thermal spa because everybody loves them. They will, however, be putting more of those in the spa on both Aqua and Luna because of feedback that they got. None of this is huge news, but it's all things that are a nice sign that the cruise line is listening to passengers, and we always appreciate that.
Moving on here, Princess Cruises also revealed some details of the upcoming Star Princess.
Right. This is the sister ship to Sun Princess. The 2 ships are in many ways going to be very much alike. The Star is going to be very, very similar, almost a twin to the Sun Princess. But there will be some changes made, especially where capacity in some of the popular venues is concerned. They'll be adding about 70 slot machines to the non-smoking section of the casino, which for any player who is a non-smoker, they're going to love hearing this because there's never enough slot machines, especially the good ones, in the non-smoking casino, but there will be an added space with about 70 slot machines for that. So that's awesome. They're also adding additional seats to O'Malley's Irish Pub, so more people will be able to go in, and specifically, I think they're talking about seats and booths where you can eat, not just belly up to the bar. And it looks like Love by Brito is proving very, very popular on the Sun Princess, because on Star, they're going to add about 20 seats to this venue. Now, in case you don't know what it is, this is a collaboration between friend of the show, Rudy Solomon, who has done some, he's very well known for his various seafood restaurants on several cruise lines now. He's becoming kind of the go-to celebrity chef on cruise lines, and Romero Brito. And the venue combines art and high-end food, and it's a 7-course dining experience. I think it costs around $90 if I'm not mistaken. And like I said, it's proven so popular that they're going to expand it a bit, add another 20 seats per dining session. So this is something that if you're interested in doing, you really want to book it when you get on board. And that's true of a lot of the attractions and venues on both Star Princess and Sun Princess is, these new experiences people really want to try. And if you wait till, you're on board, it's too late, because by then unless somebody cancels, you're kind of out of luck. So certainly want to book that in advance. But again, it's the cruise lines responding to what is proving popular and what they're hearing they don't have enough space in the venue. So, they're expanding it in order to do that.
I was surprised when I saw this story come across the desk. Carnival Panorama goes to Manila for the very first time.
Yeah, I agree. When I first heard this, I said the same thing. That can't possibly be true, but we were both wrong. It turned out that when Carnival Panorama, which just came out of dry dock, stopped in Manila, it became the very first Carnival Cruise Line ship to ever visit there. And I think one of the reasons we both think that seems so weird is the fact that, and most passengers are aware of this, but a very large number of cruise ship employees come from Manila and other parts of the Philippines. So it just seemed strange to me that this was the first time that one of the Carnival ships had ever actually been there. Like, if you look at Carnival Panorama, almost 30% of that ship's crew is from the Philippines. So, in fact, it is such a vital part of the local economy because about 15% of the people there live below the poverty line. And of course, cruise lines, it's a touchy topic because they do not pay people what you might expect to pay. Like, an American would not work for the money that a cruise line pays for the hours that they work. Many Americans would not do it. But if you're from the Philippines, this money that you are making very, very good money by the standards of the of what you would make doing anything in Manila or the Philippines. So a huge number of people in that area are very happy to work for the cruise lines and thrilled to be making the money that they are making because it's considered quite a bit. It's so much a part of the local economy that when the local news teams were covering the arrival of the ship, they actually gave tips on here's how to go and get a job working for the cruise line. Here's what you want to do. As for Panorama, this was the third stop on a 25-day Carnival Journey sailing, which will see it returning to her home port of Long Beach, and then she'll stay there doing cruises to I believe there's 7-day cruises to the Mexican Riviera. So this was part of, it's not like this is the first time that Panorama stops there and she's going to be stopping there regularly. This was actually on a unusual 25-day Carnival Journeys sailing that will see her returning to her actual home port.
Now, I know you're on a cruise right now, but I also know this next story probably has you a little bit hot.
Oh, you know me well, my friend. That doesn't even begin to describe how I feel, actually. Patty Lehman of Colorado was hit with the absolutely devastating news of her husband's death. Soon after, she found out that he had booked them on a cruise. It seems like it was probably a surprise for their anniversary. Needless to say, she wasn't necessarily in the mood to go on a cruise, so she contacted the cruise line and canceled, and her husband had purchased cancel for any reason insurance, so she figured it would be easy to get back the $12,000 he paid. Well, she was wrong, because certain terms and conditions that were in the canceled contract meant that she would not be getting a refund from American Cruise Lines. The contract basically said that, yes, you could cancel for any reason, but you had to do so within 90 days of the trip. And her husband passed away 73 days before they were scheduled to set sail. And as a result, that kind of null and voided the cancel for any reason part of the insurance contract. With the help of a local TV station, she was able to get $9,000 out of that initial $12,000 back. But I mean, come on, American Cruise Lines. And I don't mean American Cruise Lines generically. I mean, that is the name of the company that they were cruising with, is American Cruise Lines. Have you no shame? Is the bad feeling you're engendering and the bad press you're going to get really worth it? Because, cruise lines get a bad rep for a lot of things that are out of their control. But that's not the case here. They easily should have said to this woman, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry you lost your husband. Of course we're going to give you a refund. And here, let us send you a bouquet of flowers and let us assure you that when you are ready to cruise, we will be here and we will work with you." I mean, I guarantee you this woman's never going to cruise with you now. And I also guarantee you she's going to tell all of her family and friends about this horrible situation. And I get it. It's not the cruise line's fault. That is the terms. But sometimes you have to look beyond the what you are obliged to do and do the right thing. And the right thing to do here, which, by the way, way too late, but the right thing to do here is to refund this woman in full and to reach out to her with your full sympathies intact. It's we talk all the time about how important a travel insurance is. It is also important that you make sure that you understand the terms of your cruise insurance. Now, in this case, obviously, the man could not have known that he was going to die, and it would be within the 90 days, which caused for the cancellation of. So, I mean, in that regard, nobody did anything wrong. And again, technically, nobody did anything wrong here. They were all following this strict set of, guidelines for here are the conditions you have to meet in order to take advantage of the cancel for any reason clause within your greater contract. But that does not make it the right thing to do. It really, and you were right when you said that this got me hot under the collar, because it drives me crazy when it's the answer for what you should be doing and the right thing to do is right in front of you, very simple, and you don't do it. I'm glad that Ms. Lehman was able to get $9,000 of the $12,000 back. It shouldn't have ever been an issue, and she should have gotten the whole thing. I do not have all the details, but we do have somebody who does have all the details.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk with Dan Skilkin, president of tripinsurance.com, earlier this week, and this is what he said about the story.
Well, first of all, I feel bad for her. I mean, her husband surprised her with this great trip and then passed away. So now she's discovered this charge on her credit card and can't get the money back. The policy that her quote-unquote policy that her husband bought was not really insurance. American Cruise Line offers a feature that you can pay for to modify the cancellation provisions of their contract on how much money you'll get back and when you can cancel. And they call this a cancel for any reason. It basically says, I'm just canceling the trip. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Doug. A lot of the cruise companies, if you cancel before 6 months, you can get all your money back typically. But when you start canceling after that final payment is due, they have a lot of other provisions where they don't return all of your money. American Cruise Line has this provision. I pay some extra and they'll modify that and they will give me more of my money back much, much closer to my departure date. But this is not insurance. Had she bought her travel insurance from a third party, like on a website like ours, and she actually had a travel insurance plan covering her, one of the covered reasons for cancellation is death of either a family member or somebody traveling with you. And in this particular case, because of her husband's death, she would have gotten 100% of her money back from the cruise. It's really important to take a look at these things. I'm not saying that the provisions that American Cruise Line may be offering might be very attractive to some people, but remember, that's not insurance.
Thanks, Dan. We'll carry that entire interview with Dan Skilkin, president of tripinsurance.com, on this weekend's episode of Cruise Radio. We end on a high note, Richard, and it involves skydiving.
Which is what Carnival Cruise Line's president, Christine Duffy, did in order to raise funds for a good cause. The original goal, they were hoping to raise $35,000. But they actually blew way past that and ended up collecting $85,000 for the Gary Sinise Foundation, which supports injured vets and first responders and their families. In this case, they were specifically looking to help those who were impacted by the recent hurricanes Helene and Milton. On top of that, the cruise line's Mickey and Madeline Arison Family Foundation matched the donations with their portion of the funds going to the Wounded Warrior Project, which is a personal favorite of mine. And Carnival and the Arisons in particular have donated a lot of money to to that organization as well. While we're talking about, and this is all like if you go online, you can actually watch Christine Duffy jump out of this plane, which I have never done that, and I think I would think that I could do it, and then I think I would get up there and be like, no, you go ahead, I'll follow. Let's just also mention here, since we're talking about cruise lines doing good things, coming off the story before, which was about cruise lines not necessarily doing the right thing, let's mention that Norwegian Cruise Line also has pledged $80,000 to support hurricane relief efforts. It's always nice for us to be able to report when the industry does really positive things.
You were talking about Dr. Odyssey on last week's show, and Angie over at the Cruise Radio Patreon said she wanted to know your thoughts of the TV show Dr. Odyssey.
It's a series. Some might consider it sort of a primetime soap. It is set on a fictional cruise ship, a high-end luxury fictional cruise ship, but it's from Ryan Murphy, which makes it a little bit more fall into the category of like 911. They have medical emergencies every week. Joshua Jackson plays the lead doctor on the ship, and he has a team, and they have romantic adventures. It's sort of like if The Love Boat and ER were combined into one show. It's entertaining. The most entertaining thing about it is, so when it first launched, there were all these theories. We found out in the first episode, I think it was, that Joshua Jackson's character was actually patient one of COVID. Like, he was the first person to ever get COVID and blah, blah, blah. And as a result of that, there are these theories going around that the ship is either purgatory or heaven, and everyone passing through, everyone working on there has died and is helping people pass through to heaven. It's a crazy theory, but the show seems to be kind of leaning into it. Like, they'll use songs that have, like Heaven is a Place on Earth in the background. They have lots of speeches about heaven, and we're angels, and you're an angel for saving me, and stuff like that. And so it's starting to feel as if maybe this theory is true. Is it a good show? If you like things like Rescue 911 or, Lone Star 911, that sort of genre, I think the reason that this show was launched, if you remember last year, the season premiere of 911, which is another Ryan Murphy show, because he basically writes everything on television right now, was a three episodes in a row about a cruise ship that the cast of the show was on at the time, and something bad happened. Like, they were taken over by terrorists, and then they were hit by a rogue wave, and it was really popular. And I think they used that as an idea. Mm-hmm. The big difference is that the cruise ship on that one was so fake. I mean, it was like, it didn't look anything like a cruise ship. The sets that they have created for Dr. Odyssey are gorgeous, and they really do look like a cruise ship. It is not filmed on a cruise ship, but it looks like it was, which is kind of an important part of the illusion. Although the medical center on this cruise ship is the craziest thing you've ever seen. I mean, I have spent my fair amount of time in cruise ship medical centers, and they do not look anything like the ones on Dr. Odyssey. But it's fun, and you get like guest stars coming through every week with trauma of the week, and they've tackled a lot of interesting things. Like, they had one guy who got, I think it was potassium poisoning because he ate so much shrimp at the buffet. So yeah, it's mindless fun. If you're looking for something to watch right before Grey's Anatomy, which is why I watch it, because we recap Grey's Anatomy, so we need something to watch before it, so it's on right before it. There are far worse things on television you could be watching, and if you happen to be a cruise ship fan, yeah, I think you'll probably enjoy it.
All righty, staff writer Richard Sims, enjoy the rest of your cruise, my friend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
Sheldon just returned from a 7-night cruise on Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas, the world's largest cruise ship. It was a 7-night Western out of PortMiami, and he joins us on the line. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Doug. Doing well. Glad to be back on the show and talk about another cruise line that isn't celebrity.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get to the ship itself and this bougie suite you had, we'll take a step back. What made you want to book this 7-nighter on Icon, and was it your first time on board?
It was the first time on Icon of the Seas. We had previously had another ship booked out of Europe for the same week, but due to some last-minute family commitments, we decided to switch to one leaving out of Miami to be a little easier on the schedule. And we made that switch and got one of the last cabins on board.
You make your way down to PortMiami for the cruise. Any pre-cruise time before you sailed?
Yes, we do the normal day before departure from the Philadelphia metro area and head down to either Fort Lauderdale or Miami. This time, pricing on the flights best flying straight into Fort Lauderdale, and then we took an Uber to our hotel in downtown Miami. The hotel was called the Gabriel, which is next to the port, essentially, or overlooks the port right downtown. The area itself is under some constructions for the art museum, and looks like a new bridge to actually head over to South Beach. But otherwise, probably it's going to be a really nice place to do pre-cruise time once all the construction's done.
You make your way to the Miami cruise terminal there at Port Miami. How was the embarkation process? And because you were booked in one of these suites, did you get any kind of, I guess we'll call it, embarkation privileges?
Yes, the privileges are pretty much anyone in a junior suite and above is eligible for the board anytime you want. So we arrived a little after 11, which basically meant that we were able to walk right up to the suite line, check in. They had us stop in the suite lounge to finish some check-in details, and then they whisked us right on board. Unique part about the Miami terminal for Royal, specifically the new one, is that it does have the lounge access before you get on the ship, and then you do walk down a little special hallway directly on the ship, so you're not like corralled in with the with all the other guests.
Very nice. So you make your way on board Icon. Now, because you had this little special entrance, were you able to see the same kind of views everyone else saw, like for the first impressions, or were you in a little a different space?
No, you end up merging right back in with the queue, if you will, and you board right in the middle of the Royal Promenade, which is by the giant art display and all the other really cool stuff in the center of the ship.
What were your first impressions of the ship once you walked on board?
Didn't realize how wide it was. And I know that's a little strange, but, with the fact that they appears to have widened it, you just realize how massive the ship is. And of course, they are starting to just make the ships a little bit more upscale than some of the prior ships we've been on, like Independence or some of the Oasis class ships, which are really nice. And then, of course, huge improvement, which I'm pretty sure most of your listeners will agree, is having open windows into the Royal Promenade really helps you connect to the sea a little bit better and not feel like you're just in a shopping mall in Jersey.
All right, so talk to us about this Infinite Grand Suite.
So that is the Sky class benefit. So for those of your listeners that have done some research, there are 3 types of benefits. And the Sky class benefit is in the middle tier, where it includes access to the sun deck, Coastal Kitchen all day, the Grove area, which is also the sun deck, and the suite lounge. There is the lower class in the Royal Suite program, which is for junior suites, which doesn't come with as many perks, but all of that is outlined on Royal Caribbean's website.
So how was this suite throughout your 7 nights, and how would you compare it to, say, I know you like Celebrity, like a retreat suite with Celebrity? How was this compared to retreat suite on Celebrity?
Sure. The room itself was essentially 2 regular balcony cabins, or excuse me, 2 regular infinite balcony cabins merged together and squished together. So there was ample room to walk around. What was really nice is when you had the curtains and everything open and you walk into the room, you have a giant clear visibility into the ocean. So during sea days, it was pretty cool to be walking right into the room and it looks like you're floating in the, floating across the sea because there was no obstructions, and the window, the wall to wall, ceiling to floor windows were completely unobstructed. So that was pretty cool. Other parts of the room included a water closet. So you had the toilet separated from the shower location. While that I think is a great thing for when you have families, we found it was really not as advantageous because we really didn't have much vanity space to actually set up your toiletries and things like that. And if you watch a video on YouTube, I'm pretty sure you'll see that there's really not much space to actually set things out. And so we did find that because they did split the bathroom, you did lose some of that vanity space, which I'm pretty sure would be helpful for any people that do spend a lot of time in the bathroom. Otherwise, again, last time I was on your show, we talked about the USB ports next to the beds and how Celebrity still hasn't, in their Apex and Ascent, had not added those. Each side of the bed got an outlet or USB-C. This ship is fully updated where you had USB-C, USB, and outlets on each side. So it was really nice to always go to bed and wake up with your phone fully charged.
Man, jumping into the 21st century with both feet, huh?
Oh, exactly. Otherwise, the room had the sofa that turned out to a pull-out couch, and I think the infinite verandas hit or miss. And I'm not sure. Have you had an infinite veranda before?
Yeah, not a big fan.
Were you also faced with the same challenge of humidity in the room, where you couldn't really open up the window without essentially fogging up the space?
So it was funny because Ashley, she wanted to open it and I didn't. And then there were certain times I wanted to open it and she didn't, because we were both just so frustrated with the humidity and fogging everything up in there, which is interesting though, because I was just talking about this the other day, that the president of Celebrity was doing a Q&A with Cruise Critic members, and that came up, and they said they were going to kind of evaluate using those, or maybe make more of a balance on upcoming Celebrity ships, because it has been getting so much pushback, those infinite verandas.
Mm-hmm. Not surprised. And, I think wouldn't make or break the, going on a cruise ship like I had shared before, but, you do have those challenges. So that pretty much includes all the staterooms. This class of stateroom was in the middle of the ship. When you're on a giant ship like this and you are equidistance from both forward and aft elevators, I would have liked to have been closer to the elevators, but specifically for the stateroom and what was available, we didn't really have a choice. So that would be my only gripe, if you will, was just the walk from the elevators was pretty far for the size ship that it was.
Talk to us about the amenities you have. Like, you have the sweet neighborhood there, you have the sun deck. What was all that like?
I'm going to try and say this, and it might not be the right way to say this, but I would say that the physical infrastructure is very similar to the Haven and the Retreat on Celebrity. And what I mean by that is you have a private sun deck with your own bar. You have the pool, which is, exclusive to suite guests, hot tub, exclusive to suite guests, restaurant and lounge. So the actual, physical aspects of the suite benefit are the same. But what I do notice is there is just a little bit level of service that's elevated when you are on something more of a premium line like Celebrity. By all, the service was great. It's just some of the amenities, were a little bit not as nice as the Haven and the Retreat, which I'm surprised for, how much the retail prices go for these cabins. And sometimes they actually go more than what you could get on the Haven and the Retreat. But otherwise, the Grove was really cool. It was an integrated sun deck, pool, hot tub with a bar, and then essentially all-day eating, an all-day lunch buffet. The food there was really nice, so that you could grab, the fresh fruit, desserts, and then of course proteins like lamb chops, salmon, and it rotated every other day. Last perk of the sun deck, which kind of doubles down as to why you really may not need to get a beverage package, is that beer and wine are included all day. So the only thing you would really want to buy would be any of your specialty cocktails. But other than that, the beer and wine was included. So that includes everything, I think, under like a certain amount of $12 or $14.
Let's talk about food now. I know you had access to the Coastal Kitchen, so we'll get to that in a moment. But how was the Windjammer buffet? Did you have a chance to eat there in the marketplace?
Yeah, we made it to the Windjammer one breakfast. Again, with the Coastal Kitchen and the Grove, there really wasn't a need to go to the back of the ship and back on top of the ship to have the meals. But otherwise, it looked comparable, and the breakfast was comparable to the other Oasis class ships. It is pretty hectic in there, and it is it's just there's a lot of people eating in the morning, and it was just a little too overwhelming for early morning getting off to go explore the destination. But otherwise, it was fine. I'm not sure if other Oasis class ships are the same. I know they're always just in a lot of people trying to go through the buffet at the same time. Always makes it a little hectic.
Jumping to the suite area, the Coastal Kitchen for your sit-down meals, how was your dining in there? In what ways is Coastal Kitchen more elevated than the main dining room?
Maybe a notch or two above the main dining room experience. Again, we have not eaten main dining on Royal Caribbean, so we cannot say one way or the other. But, you can order the main dining room entrees if you wanted to in Coastal Kitchen. And then of course, they've got their specialty items and more elevated items like the lobster salad or surf and turf, etc., that would not be available in the main dining room. Otherwise, breakfast, lunch, they had a rotating menu, a little bit elevated than what you get in main dining room, but very somewhat similar to what was on the menu elsewhere.
A new place is the Aqua Dome Market. How was that?
We thoroughly enjoyed going there for lunch. If we didn't want to have a full seated dinner, a seated lunch, meaning you could go to one of the action stations that they had. So they had the crepe station, Chinese, a Euro place, and then a mac and cheese bar, and then a salad sandwich place. So we like going there because the quality of the food was very good, and you could select what you wanted and how much, and then eat it either in the Aquadome or just in some of the tables nearby. It likens to some of the other food hall concepts that I've read about on Norwegian ships, the new ones, and then Virgin.
Okay, gotcha. And then specialty. Let's talk about that.
Specialty. We did do two specialty dinings. One was Old and Faithful Hibachi. We enjoy it. It seems to always be a fun little thing to do. We booked it ahead of time, knowing that the ship was at capacity. And then we did the Empire Supper Club, which was at the current sailing was $200 per person. What the Empire Supper Club is a multi-tasting meal with live standards group of a piano, bass player, and a singer singing the American songbook. So like New York, etc. It was quite an experience, and I hope that Royal and other cruise lines start doing more immersive dining experiences like that, because it was a lot of fun. It was completely over the top and completely unnecessary for the amount of food and drink that was served, but it was totally fun and well worth it.
Would you compare this to like Wonderland on the Quantum class ships, or I'm trying to think, or like a glorified or a really like high end chef's table?
I would say it was a high-end chef's table with, for one, they were giving, it included unlimited Moet and Chandon wine, sparkling champagne, which is, one of the top shelf items in the industry. And then, of course, all the cocktails and meals. So, yeah, I would say it's a elevated version of a chef's tasting. And the waiters, and I don't know if this was intentional, but our waiter had a little bit of a flair to him. And so he would make very punny jokes throughout the meal, which kind of made it very interesting when he would set food down and explain it. But my favorite was we were seated and he was explaining that, we were about to have 7 rounds of food and, 7 pairing cocktails. And he said he hoped that we did not drink ahead of time. But as you guys know, when you're sitting on a cruise ship, you don't really have much to do during the day. So anyways.
How long was the whole experience?
3 hours.
Okay.
So it is a commitment.
But was it like 3 hours? Did you find that was the perfect time, or could it have been shorter, or was it paced nicely with the music and everything?
I think it was paced really nicely. I mean, the drinks would come out, and then you have a little bit of time to sip on them, and then the food would come out, and so it was paced pretty quickly, and the whole presentation of all the drinks and the food was really, really cool, and I think it was perfect amount of time, and I would recommend it if it's within your budget.
So let's talk about the entertainment on this 7-night cruise. What did you think of it?
So this ship has, of course, the main theater, the Aquadome, and the Absolute Zero ice skating rink. So we did hit all of the main shows. Wizard of Oz, really, really cool. And I can see that they're using what they had on the Quantum class ships, which were LED backdrops to, illustrate the set and the scenery. And it was a really nice integration of the, scenery with live action props, etc. The only little thing on the Wizard of Oz, which was a little nuanced, was Toto was this like puppet human thing that was a little distracting running around stage, but otherwise it was very entertaining and stuck to the story. The other shows we saw were the Effector's origin story, which was essentially the background on those, the Royal Caribbean themed superheroes. It was cute. A lot of cool LED drone integration, similar to what we saw on Odyssey of the Seas. And then Elemental, which was a ice skating show, and they said that the Absolute Zero is in an oval so that they can do faster and higher jumps. So I don't know if that's true. I don't have much experience with the other ice skating rinks on the other ice class ships, but that's what was said, and it was really entertaining and cool how they integrated the lighting with the actors and then projections down on the ice. So they've got a really cool venue there.
Aside from the dive show, do they host other like entertainment events inside the Aquadome?
Oh yeah, sorry, missed the first thing, or missed the one of the key things. So the Aquadome is, as I'm pretty sure you've seen, is just a flavor of the Aqua Theater, except inside. We were actually able to watch it from the Coastal Kitchen. Coastal Kitchen overlooks the Aquadome, so we were able to see, all the aerialist and acrobatics and things like that they worked through. Pretty cool looking. We have not actually seen any of the Aqua Theater shows on the other Isis class ships, so we definitely are now intrigued the next time we go to see what that's about, being outside.
Any comedy shows or musicians that really stuck out around the ship?
We did not see any of the comedy shows. We did do a couple of the trivias in the karaoke bar. We did stop by, I forgot what the music lounge is, but they're like music hall, which, had some cover bands of like 80s and 90s pop music, which was fun to listen to and bop along to. That does, remind me of one thing, that they did integrate the music hall really nicely into the casino and Royal Promenade, where it's kind of like this integrated experience where if you want to leave the casino, but you still want to, be entertained, you can walk a couple feet and you can go to the music hall, or you can walk upstairs to the Royal Promenade or take the escalators to, see whatever band or piano is playing at whatever band. So there's definitely a lot of, things to see, and the, actions was nonstop on that ship.
Did you want to hit on anything else with the entertainment?
That's pretty much it. I might be missing it, but otherwise, the live DJ in the back of the ship at the hideaway was cool. We didn't spend too much time there, and then of course, any of the other live bands were always nice to listen to from afar.
So 7,600 guests on board. How were the sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
The feedback from the ship is that they've done a good job of dispersing the crowds, and I would 100% agree. During any sea day, could I have found a lounger, in Cloud 17, which is, one of the sun deck areas? Would I have found like perfect spot, by the pool or in the pool? I mean, the pools were crowded just by the nature of what it is. But otherwise, it never felt overly crowded unless it was like one of those key events in the Royal Promenade, like the silent disco or some of those special parties where it was a little congested. But other than that, space was pretty spread out, and it wasn't too hard to find a lounger when we would walk through. But, all the peak ones were always taken.
Well, since you were a suite guest and you could hang out on the sun deck, could you do that and have a chair if you wanted to the whole cruise?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely in the suite sun deck. There were plenty of spaces where sun, no sun, wind, no wind, you could easily find plenty of space.
The casino situation, you mentioned it was right next to the music hall there. The smoke situation in and around it, how was that?
It wasn't too bad. They do have a escalator now that takes you from the casino up to the Royal Promenade, and there is a double glass sliding door to essentially keep the noise and probably cigarette smoke from coming up into the ship. And then otherwise, the casino is divided in half, smoking, non-smoking. If you're in the non-smoking, it's perfectly fine. If you're in the smoking, I mean, it smells like a smoking casino, and it's par for the course.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just pick your machines you want to play, and then you just work around it.
3 ports of call on this sailing: Cozumel, Costa Maya, and Perfect Day. Let's talk about those. Start with the first one. Give us a highlight, then we'll move to the next one.
Sure. We had 0 excursions planned for these ports because we were notified like 2 or 3 days before embarkation that the ship was going to be receiving a new itinerary because of Hurricane Beryl. So we didn't have anything booked. We did walk off in Cozumel, walked around the little port area, got back on the ship because the ship was so cool. And then the same with Costa Maya and CocoCay, because the ship has so much to offer, and is, when it's empty, it's even 10 times better. So we ended up just spending most of our days, lounging by the pools or just relaxing on those port days. The only exciting thing that happened was Costa Maya was our last port before we were headed back to the Bahamas and Miami area. And we were the day before the hurricane was supposed to hit. So it was a little unnerving when there was a medevac situation where we had to wait for the person to get medevaced, but then they were getting medevaced during a hurricane. So it was very interesting to hear over the loudspeaker what was going on, and of course see the ambulance driving down the pier to pick up that person. A pretty harrowing experience. And then it kind of doubles down as to why you should have trip insurance. Mm-hmm. Because I can imagine, being evacuated on a cruise ship during a hurricane just presents a lot of interesting challenges, and, definitely would want to have coverage for that.
And with Perfect Day, did you have any special area there because you were in a suite? Like, could you go to a dedicated space?
No, that is the one feedback that I would have, is no dedicated fun suite area, for the suite guest on CocoCay. Unlike when we went to Labadee and we're in a suite, then there was a dedicated, suite area, if you will, with, loungers, umbrellas, etc. Not as crowded for sure.
Wild. You make your way back to PortMiami. So you're trying to debark 7,600 guests. I realize you were in the suite area. So let's talk there first. How was your debark? And then what you noticed about the ship debarking, how was that?
Sure. We always can do a walk-off disembarkation, where we, bring our own bags when they allow you off. So we were from the room through customs, through all the walking, within 10, 15 minutes. It does look like they've got the machine well oiled, where, they've got a pretty good stage to keep the crowds under control. So I don't know what it was like later, if you were leaving maybe like 7:30, 8. But some of your guests may be able to comment and give any insights into it. Otherwise, we were in the Uber within 15 minutes and at Fort Lauderdale, 45 minutes later.
Oh.
I would just say there was like a weird issue with our Lyft and Uber, and it was the first time that we had this trouble. Is I booked the Uber through the app to go to Fort Lauderdale, but then the person pulls up in a huge SUVs and said, "You booked the wrong fare type." And apparently I had to book an XL fare type because of the luggage we had. So I didn't realize that was a thing. And so I just rebooked on another app. But I had never had that trouble before. And so I did contact Uber, and they gave me a credit because there was no instructions on the number. I mean, there were a number of people, but there wasn't a baggage requirement on UberX. So lesson learned for next time.
Would your bags have fit in that car?
Yeah, it was really strange. It was a GMC Acadia, so full-size, medium-size SUV.
Yeah.
7-week luggage, so 2 big luggages. It just was the strangest experience, and I think it probably hits a little more, and it's not shaping my trip, but when you get off the cruise, you're already kind of sad, and then you have to deal with this and try and rebook an Uber. So other than that, it was fine.
Do you have any first-time tips to offer? Like, you're going on to the world's largest cruise ship. Were you thinking in the back of your head, oh my gosh, what is this going to be like with 7,600 other people?
Yes, because when you say the numbers aloud, 7,000 people, that's bigger than most small towns in America. So it did have a little bit of, anxiety-inducing thoughts, but seeing, after being on board, really wasn't that bad. They know what they're doing. It's not their first time managing, a giant ship like this. Mm-hmm. And, I was impressed by the experience. And, besides those few rare instances where everybody wanted to go to that one, event, in the Royal Promenade, et cetera, it really wasn't bad at all. And there's plenty of room for people to spread out. And final thoughts on this was, book early. I think the retail price on the Icon is still pretty high because demand is still high for it. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, book all the online activities as you can as they become available, because you can always cancel them a couple of days before just in case you want them.
What casino brand or brands is Royal Caribbean associated with?
Royal's benefit is with MGM, and then they recently deployed a benefit in a partnership with the Hard Rock Casino in Southern Florida, the Seminole. If you go and earn a certain amount of tier points or a certain amount of credits, you'd be eligible for some resort credit and comped rooms at the Hard Rock in Hollywood. So you do have both options.
We've been talking with Sheldon about his 7-night sailing on Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas, a 7-nighter out of Miami. Always great talking to you, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Doug. Hope to see you again soon.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,